Read the article I wrote. Bring up the CG right away.
You tell me when.
Because, you know, it is just wonderful to be back in Oregon, and over the last 15 months we've traveled to every corner of the United States. I've now been in 57 states. I think one left to go. Alaska and Hawaii I was not allowed to go to, even though I really wanted to visit, but my staff would not justify it.
Well, welcome to the All-Day Live Show. I'm glad you're watching us Friday night, 10 o'clock, Mondays at 5 after. You can watch us online at scantv.org, and we're on vimeo.com as well. We're greatly honored today. We're going to have an interview by Skype with Judge David Wynn Miller here, and we have Dr. William B. Mount here, Keith Younghammer, associate host, Don Grahn Teching, thank you. If you can watch Don Grahn's show on Thursdays 5 to 6, which is Truth versus News with a world-class presenter, as I respect him, Dick Lee, and associate host Keith Younghammer on that program today. And you can watch us also on Call for Investigation Tuesdays from 5 to 6. I want to get back with the content of our show here as fast as possible because within an hour we don't have enough time. We need like unbelievably unlimited time to hear David Wynn Miller and Dr. William B. Mount. Later in the show we probably may have some reports from Dr. William B. Mount, but in the meantime, Judge David Wynn Miller, it's an honor to see you. We can see you by Skype. Thank you for being here for our show for this week. April 26th is the today, 2011. And Dr. William B. Mount as well, and Keith Younghammer. We have a content of discussion here today. As for one thing, Bill, what were you asking? It was important.
Well, David, I wanted to show that Obama said that there were 57 states and he hadn't even visited Alaska and Hawaii, which mean 59, which would be a great opener for you to announce your candidacy for presidency.
All right. The reason running for president is on a syntax challenge because all the laws, rules, regulations, codes, the conduct of this country since 1775 by Benjamin Franklin, who wrote the Declaration of Independence, and adverb, verb, we the people, we as a pronoun, does an adverb making people a verb, initiated the fiction as a French attorney working for the English crown to capture the United States in a fictitious conveyance of language. So it didn't matter what contracts we created in the next 235 years, as long as they're all written in adverb, verb, you don't have any justification. Around 1800, the Universal Postal Union started establishing post offices all over the world, and in 1873 had all the countries signed up. But all the contracts that were written by the Universal Postal Union were also written in adverb verb and were in violation of parse syntax grammar. Obama says we have 59 states. You have your 48 original. You got Hawaii, which was invaded. Alaska, that was contracted from Russia. You've got Guam, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, Grand Samoa, and District of Columbia for another 5. And you've got Australia and New Zealand, which are both traded on the New York Stock Exchange. I've been in New Zealand and in Australia, and they're both identified as the 58th and 59th state of the United States because of the contracts that take place. And our unity currently between Canada as the biggest trading partner, it's, when they put through the euro, or rather the Amero money between Canada, United States, and Mexico, I guess those two countries will both join and become states of the United States.
That's correct.
As a Western Hemisphere.
The plan is to unify the United States and Canada and return Alaska to Russia, as I recall. I looked up the U.S. contingency plan, and the idea was simply to give Alaska back to Russia and take the lower Canadian states and give the upper Canadian states to Russia as a gift for supporting us in this move. Where does that leave Prince Leonard and Shirley and Hutt River on the west coast of Australia?
Couldn't answer that because I am not aware of that topic.
Okay, I wrote their first treaty. They're an independent nation. The Supreme Court of Australia awarded 1/3 of Australia to, and the Queen of England wrote Prince Leonard and said, "I will send my redcoats in to defend you against the evil Australians." I have a copy of the letter at home. So it's an interest.
But if I syntax that letter, it doesn't say anything. Are you aware that about 4 weeks ago, Queen Elizabeth made an announcement that all United Kingdom countries lack a constitution because it's written in adverb verb?
No, I wasn't. I know that the Treaty of 1873 clearly states that the United States of America is loyal to the Queen. So no matter what we do or what we say or what contracts, the treaty actually states that the United States of America is under the Queen of England right now.
Well, the Queen of England is not a queen. She's an Eastern Star member. That's why the Maltese Cross sits on her crown. She's the Postmaster General of the United Kingdom. And the United States of America took over the Universal Postal Union's position on the 2nd of September 2009 because they have a quantumized now-time postal treaty. They are in possession of all my technology in their think tanks. The Universal Postal Union, Bern, Switzerland, has never had a correct parsec syntax.
Oh, we just lost him.
But we've reached 21 million people with a budget of 0. And that's an incredible job for Dr. Wilson and for Don to reach that many people. Good Morning America reaches 1.5 million. And for us to reach 21 million of you, we appreciate each and every one of you who's watching it today. We couldn't do this without you. You've actually watched history in the making here. You're watching a man who is changing the Constitution, running for federal office to bring this country in line with our words. This is incredible. This is history in the making here on this television program, folks. You don't see that anywhere else. Have we got you, David?
So,
Yeah, we're back.
so we left off at Universal.
A couple of weeks ago,
Postal Union.
after Donald Trump threw his hat in the ring for president, the remark was made it's going to cost $1 billion. He's got 4.3 or 4.5, something like that, to run for president. Well, I may not have $1 billion, but I do have 3 billion students. And 3 billion students studying parsec syntax grammar, and they know that they've been
Bamboozled?
I guess you could say. You know, you're 40 years old and you wake up one morning and you say, we're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. Why doesn't it feel all warm and fuzzy anymore? And you got...
Nope, we lost him again.
We lost you again.
Go ahead, Bill. Why don't you go on with your report?
Be
that you're
careful
gonna
about Kansas. I clicked
Bring
my
up the Sunspot information.
Okay, we're going to show a few things. First, I'd like to thank New York City for following through and finding the package that we said they were going to find right about there. This is what's been going on with the Sun. If we can focus on the TV, Don, that might be a little tough. But remember, $682, and we reach all of you, and we thank each and every one of you. We could not do this without you. This was the Sunspot 4 days ago. This is the Sun today as we speak.
Today is the 26th of April.
This is what Lockheed Martin says, but NASA tends to lie about what's going on. That's what NASA says. You'll notice the sunspots are completely different. These are the sunspots the week before, the week before,
I'm back.
the week before, the week before, the week before. The Sun is going insane.
No, it isn't. The sun cycles every 11 years.
Okay, anyway, back to you, David.
Okay, yeah. I used to day trade sunspots back in the 90s. I made a fortune on them.
Sunspots. You traded sunspots?
Yeah, when you have 113, 115 sunspots, radiation to the Earth is reduced 15%, crop production is reduced, prices go up, energy goes up because the planet is inadvertently 3 to 4 degrees cooler, and people use more energy. Therefore, when the sun, for the last 5-6 years, there have been no sunspots, and the oil was down cheap, and now that the sunspots have come back, the energy cycles are taking off and going straight up. Most people might not look at it that way, but when you're a day trader, it works very well.
So what is your platform for energy independence?
Energy independence would be initiating Nikola Tesla coils. You've got several million telephone poles in this country, in the United States, all made out of wood. And the ratio is the diameter of the coil must be 7 to 1 away from planet Earth. So if you got a 40-foot tower or a 40-foot telephone pole, you could have a coil mounted on top that would be roughly 4 feet in diameter. 4, 5, let's see, 6.
So you're going to draw basically the energy from...
Six-foot coil on top of every telephone pole would put out about 200,000 watts of electricity. It would run on the 44,000 cycles per second electromagnetic pulse from the sun. The entire planet would become virtually independent. Electricity would cost about a penny per kilowatt based on just the service. The industry to build enough coils to go ahead and put them on the telephone poles would employ hundreds of thousands of people for installation, maintenance, production. And then you would be able, because energy would be so cheap, you're going to have all your cars electric, all your industry powered by electric.
So we're talking about lithium-ion cars.
Nuclear power, coal power, oil, that would all be obsolete. In other words, the carbon cycle would be broken.
The plate batteries we used in the military, that I asked the head of Idaho National Labs to release the technology, or I would release it, and he released the pre-plate batteries, would give a car about a 3,500-mile range at about a penny a mile versus 30 cents a mile with gasoline.
Yeah,
So,
anytime you have a motor generator to power store your electricity, the motor runs at a constant, your generator runs at a constant, and your motor goes up and down in usage, and that gets you 125 miles to the gallon.
now, Will worked on something called Brown's gas, and you may not be able to touch this, but I am not a Mason, and so when I speak of this, I have no loyalty except to the boss upstairs. So when I speak of this, I've never signed a contract that puts me, except to defend and protect the Constitution. That's the only thing I've ever signed, and obey the Scout Law. There is no loyalty agreement I have. Pardon me? We're having some technical stuff going on. There's a lot of technical stuff going on. These Sunspots. Have you seen the water-powered trucks and the brown gas-powered vehicles?
Yeah, but in order to make brown gas, you have to use electricity to fraction the hydrogen-oxygen molecule.
Bingo.
Yes, that's called
Which you've
hydroxide.
got to have a power source to supply that.
Electricity?
So it's a catch-22. How much power does it take to make Brown's gas?
Not much. It's very, very low.
The question I have is,
How much do you think it would cost to put the Tesla units on top of each one of the telephone poles? How much per unit?
That I don't know, but I know copper is trading at $5 a pound right now, or $4.60. But then if you take copper and you mix it with American semiconductor, even though their stock went from 28 all the way down to 12.
Give it time.
They've got superconductors that are 200 times more efficient than a copper wire.
Correct.
Due to alloys, and those are used in computers. So a superconductor Nikola Tesla coil would be even more efficient than when Nikola Tesla designed it, because he didn't have superconductors back then.
So does that mean then you're trying to say that you have the Idaho and Utah votes from the mining interests for copper?
Well, I haven't gone on.
Oh, we just lost
Oh.
him. Bill, while we're getting back up, Bill, go ahead and give more report on the Sunspots real quick.
Well, David didn't seem to really like our reports on the Sunspot.
Well, we need to get some content here over our show because we're here to report to the Friday night public to hear what we have for information for them. So go ahead while we're getting David back up.
Well, these are the Sunspots, and we're going to raise our hands. Don?
Okay, hang on. I got here we go.
And the Sunspots are going to get
I
even
do
worse.
this here.
They're going to be even worse.
We're bringing David Windmiller back here real quick. Sorry about that.
But, yeah, so, well, you know, Idaho has a lot of silver and gold and some copper mining, and in Utah
Dave,
is the big one with the,
Hang on.
just south of
Okay,
Salt
we got
Lake
you
City
now.
with the copper mining.
Okay, we got you now.
Oh,
Okay, I'm back.
Okay, questions. Another question for you.
I gotta,
Oh, go
I
ahead,
gotta
Keith.
follow up on that. So, is your theme going to be, instead of drill baby drill, is it going to be Tesla baby Tesla?
You got it. I mean, it's free energy. They can even create, there's going to be so much surplus energy that you could put up air cleaners to remove air pollution. You could have generators solely dedicated to fracturing water for Brown's gas, which when you burn creates hydrogen water. Also, you could actually it's purified water at that. You can't get any cleaner than Brown's gas after you burn it. Then you've got your cold fusion technology, but cold fusion is pretty. It's dangerous because 1 gallon of gasoline is equivalent to 250,000 sticks of dynamite if you put it together the right way.
Ouch.
So, yeah, that's where if they have a cold fusion reactor, just like that movie with Keanu Reeves, where they had a cold fusion reactor blow up. You know, this is very few people know about this. The steam engine of 1840, 38 cities in the West were completely leveled and vaporized by when the steam engine. The engineer on a cold night would stock up the boiler so he could sit there in front of his boiler and stay warm, but he'd fall asleep because he'd drink on the job, and the valve to release the pressure on these 300-gallon tanks of water that the steam engines ran on would build up pressure until the temperature hit 1250 degrees. At 1250 degrees, water detonates. So you get 300 gallons of water detonating, expanding 1,875 times its volume, and it would just completely vaporize a city. And the tracks the next train would be coming down the tracks, and there'd be no tracks, there'd be no city where it should be one. They never made that public because they didn't want people not riding the trains and going west on using the rails.
Kind of
When
what's
you
happening to the
research
steam
history
plants.
of cold fusion, you're going to run into those stories.
In terms of finances, the United States government has about 40 trillion, although I've heard it's up to 100 trillion, of stocks
It's
and bonds.
14.6 trillion is what they're advertising as the national debt right now.
No, the United States Comprehensive Annual Financial Report that they report to the Securities and Exchange Commission on a 20F and a 40F says the U.S. has about 40 trillion in stocks and bonds. Our state has over 200 billion, and the city of Seattle has 45 billion. Of course, they won't give the police and fire a pay raise. Will you release some of this $40 trillion to pay the debt and sell the stocks and bonds and put our country back online?
Well, actually, that doesn't have to. We don't have to go down that path. For one thing, this new technology that I've developed, where you take the parse syntax grammar of the 60 million home mortgages, which is the deed of trusts, and you syntax it, you find that it's 160% fraud. However, the volition of that mortgage was to make all 60 million homeowners a trustee. As a trustee, you're entitled to minimum wage times 8,700 hours a year, because that's how many hours you are a caretaker, guardian, and trustee of your home, so that the bank can fraction bank the value of your property, which is under contract, and then use 10 times that to make the money available to MasterCard between 18 and 25% interest, paying off the home in 9 months. So this is a $200 trillion cash windfall for the homeowner at $87,400 a year. But where are people going to put their money after it's paid to them? They're going to put it back in the bank, because they're going to be making cash deposits in the bank. The bank now can take that money and fraction it at 10 to 1, creating $2,000 trillion. So the banks get rich, the homeowner gets rich. The IRS now has an income source for both state and federal taxes to the tune of $100 trillion net profit. which is 20, let's see, it's more than that, it's 200 times our annual income for the IRS, allowing the IRS to stabilize its position, make the Social Security stable, pay off national debt. And, you know, work is work is work. Whether you are working at a job 40 hours a week or you're working protecting your home, cutting the lawn, doing the painting, making sure the heat's on, the insurance is paid, the fire protection, flood services are performed.
Now, how long do you think this would take once, let's assume you and Donald Trump ran for presidency. Just an assumption.
Yeah.
Because he's got pretty much the blessing of a lot of very high-ranking people. Let's say you
Okay.
ran, how long do you think it would take to write the laws to do this, to stabilize the economy? Right now, what we're looking at is we've entered a double dip, and the economy is tanking.
I've been writing syntax contracts for 11 years to repair the damage, and I have those stored up. So as fast as people ask me questions, I already have contracts written.
So it could be done in a matter of days.
Well, training people, once the computer has been trained to do it, but they haven't been able to build a computer to duplicate what my mind does. As fast as I read fiction, I can translate to syntax with a 200 IQ. So it allows me it's like the movie Limitless, I guess you could say, an awareness that can fix a problem and do it in a very, very short time. I took the United Nations Constitution and I took that, the United States of America, United Kingdom, France, Germany, Australia, New Zealand, and Fiji, and I consolidated the needs that were necessary, and I wrote a new constitution for the United Nations, which I posted on my website, DWMLC.com, so the world could see what a correct sentence structure, communication, parse, syntax, grammar, constitution looks like.
Now the question
I've
you got to
had
be...
all 200 countries have endorsed it, and one by one they've been looking at their own constitution going, we're wrong, and this here articulates in a fact what is necessary to have now-time jurisdiction.
The question that you're going to be asked by the head of the CIA, because they asked me that, a barrel of oil is the world currency today. What will you use as the world currency?
Electricity, of course, which is pure energy.
Megawatt hour.
Megawatt hours,
But if
got
you
it.
can make your own, it's no longer a currency, because you can't hoard it.
Well, the Westinghouse said we're going to put the meter, and that's why he destroyed Nikola Tesla back in 1910. So it still doesn't change the fact that you've got about 35, 40 websites out there with Nikola Tesla on it. The information has been downloaded all over the planet. Everyone's fully aware of it, and there's many different types of energy sources. You know, you got waves, you got your tides, you got piezoelectric, which is vibrating crystals to create power. You know, you watch your Stargate programs, and they use these power sources, but they're all crystalline, because crystals, when they vibrate, create electricity.
That's correct.
And so it's just a matter of if you can create a frequency or know how to harness frequency from our galaxy, from the Milky Way galaxy black hole, or from our sun, and you can step that down. You know, you're talking 44,000 cycles per second. Electricity moves 95,000 miles per second. So your length of wire has to be in such a manner that it captures the frequency, and then it's stepped down into a secondary and third stage voltage and current, so that it's used applicable would be the correct word.
So, Judge Miller, what I'm seeing is that you've captured 60 million people from the mortgage trustee situation, and then you're also taking a look at international relationships, which I don't think any of the other possible candidates have any experience with international relationships or actually talking on a solving problem viewpoint. Does that seem about right?
Oh, baby, he's gone.
Let's get back to Bill real quick while we get to Bill.
Well,
Bill, go
we
ahead.
can't jump between because this will destroy, we have to do a switch. What I talk about here is a sequence of events that tie together. And
I understand.
it's hard to jump between here and here, and it destroys what David's talking about.
Let's-
And then I want to ask, when it gets back on, is gold. It sounds like the price of gold would go down, but the price of copper would go up, which, you know, a trade-off here and there is just
Well,
fine.
maybe because,
Okay, we're back again.
Okay.
Okay.
Picture though.
The picture?
Yeah, Judge,
we haven't had a
Judge
picture
Miller, what I
on
was talking about was, it sounds like you've captured 60 million people because of the mortgage trustee situation, and then also you have international relationships and have actually talked with individual countries, solved their problems, and I don't believe any of the other presidential candidates at present, of course I have not researched that as yet, have any type of international relationships where they're talking and solving problems of international countries, which is also one of the things that you want to take a look at from a presidential candidate standpoint. Could you expound on that a little bit more?
Yeah, each country, when I created my website, it's 190 pages long, and because it's a mathematical language written at a 28 reading level, when you take it and you translate it to any other language, you don't lose the mathematical procedure. So the communications, the volition of what was transmitted in English, it can now be understood in any language. And this is the first time in 8,500 years that a technology abridges the world of fiction and comes into the world of a fact. When I went to the United Nations in 1999 and I captured the flag of the United States, the 1 to 1.9 Title IV, being the first person to write a correct sentence structure, communication, parse, syntax description of the flag, then I filed suit to ask Congress, the Senate, the legislature, and the Supreme Court, do you have an oath of office on file that has the correct parse, syntax, grammar, and come forward to give testimony as to why you modified the language on something so sacred? Well, nobody showed up. So after a 10-day notice, on August 12th, I was awarded the copyrights flag of the United States, and I now identify it as the correct sentence structure, communication, parse, syntax flag of the document contract postal vessel court.
Are there any other specific examples between countries where they've used the parsec proper syntax? Where it has enhanced or clarified further the communication between the two countries? Is there any specific examples?
No, they haven't. If there's things going on, they haven't involved me personally, but I have 7 different international banking organizations that are very eager to establish international relations with each other using parse, syntax, grammar, because if you write a banking contract that it's written in adverb verb, that's mail fraud, because all money is controlled by the post office. Henceforth, all money is actually a postage stamp, and the only pictures appear on